Sleepless in Seattle, a great rom-com, or not rom-com, but like romantic dramedy, I would say, with Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Brilliantly written by Nora Ephron, directed by Rob Reiner. This is a really... Oh, I'm sorry. That's When Harry Met Sally. Whoops. Really well-written, very smart rom-com. That's easily one of the best date movies you could watch. It's one of the best examples of... yeah, it's just a really great romantic drama, comedy, whatever you want to call it. It's really good otherwise. And one of the best romantic films out there. It was actually... Funny story. This movie was modeled after An Affair to Remember, and yet this movie references that movie all the time. So, yeah. That's kind of funny. Seven Brides for Seven Brothers. Oh, yes. One of the great MGM musicals. Jane Powell and Howard Keel. Also with Russ Tamblyn. This movie, okay. This movie is most notable for the barn dance scene. It's mostly notable for that scene. But there's a lot more to this movie than you may think. And this DVD also has the alternate cut, which, if I remember correctly, it's basically the same movie, just with different angles. So they shot, like, different camera angles for the same scenes, from what I understand. But, yeah. Sherlock Holmes. Honestly, I'm not really a fan of Sherlock Holmes. I just think he's too invincible. Like, he doesn't have any flaws to him. It's just kind of I don't know, that's just me, though. But I did like the Guy Ritchie movie. I did. Robert Downey Jr. and Jude Law. I did like it, don't get me wrong, but I did see Game of Shadows, the sequel, twice. I'm not kidding. Bashik and Son of a Sheik, both with Rudolph Valentino. Oh yes, I finally get to talk about Rudolph Valentino. Known as the Latin lover of the silent era, women adored him, men couldn't stand him. He had this... His films are really interesting because he has this, like, gaze in his eyes, and that's what women were drawn to. His first appearance was 1921's Before Horsemen of the Apocalypse. And yes, I did watch that recently, and that was pretty good for the most part. But Bashik has often been associated with Rudolph Valentino. It has been the film that most people think about when they think of Rudolph Valentino. Although he was also in 1923's The Eagle, which was better. I don't know. Anyway, I need to get more of these. Anyway. But, yes, we have Bashik and its sequel, The Son of Bashik, in 1926. He never lived to see the sound era, but his films are really interesting and clever, but he is one of the great silent film actors of all time. The Shape of Water, Best Picture winner 2017. This is actually one of my favorite Guillermo del Toro movies. We have two misfits, Sally Hawkins and The Creature in Black Lagoon, which, yes, I know he has a name, but I know he has a different name in this movie, but it looks like Creature from the Black Lagoon. And how they connect, and how they've been sort of mistreated by society, and, you know, the two are essentially, you know, different from one another, and it's really... And how, you know, they're both trying to save one another. It's just great. It's very good. And by the way, I did hear that Criterion's going to release it soon. No thanks. It doesn't look any different than what I already have, so. Not this time. Sideways. I love Sideways. Sideways is one of my favorite films. Okay, here's the thing about Sideways. It's mainly about two people who go on a road trip and they taste wine and stuff. But there's way more to it. It's one of the best comedies you can watch. And Alexander Payne has gone on to do some really great stuff, including most recently The Holdovers. But this film is about two characters, Paul Giamatti and Thomas Hayden Church, going on a road trip together, and either they can't stand one another, or they, is that Sandra Oh? Yes, it's Sandra Oh. You know, they weren't something more, they weren't something about themselves, but they also weren't about... This film is a little bit too complex for me to talk about in this video, but trust me when I say that it is fantastic. One of the best comedies of all time. Just like this one, Slapshot. This is one of the funniest movies I have ever seen. I don't want to give it away, but this movie, oh my god. One of the funniest comedies you could watch. Paul Newman, oh my god, just really funny. Again, set in the world of hockey. It's just brilliant. I don't want to... I don't want to talk too much about it because I'll spoil it, but trust me when I say that it's one of the funniest comedies out there. There's so many great moments in this. It's too many to count. It's amazing. Shall We Dance? Great cast, but I don't know why I have that. I do know why I have this. Secret in Their Eyes. This is a fantastic drama from Spain. I think it's Spain, or is it... I don't know, but let's just say it's absolutely fantastic. It's a character study about a writer who's trying to investigate this rape and murder, and he's been investigating it for years. He's trying to figure out who killed this person, but it's almost haunting him because he can't figure out what is really going on. It's just so brilliant. Very fascinating movie. That's a movie that nobody really talks about, which I think is a shame because it's brilliant. Shark Tale. Oh, God. Okay, I guess I should say something about it. This is one of DreamWorks' worst movies. I'm not even kidding when I say that. This should have never happened. There's nothing you can say that will convince me that this movie was any good. There's nothing you can tell me that would make me change my mind about this movie. It's just, oh my god, it's so bad. But, I mean, The Wire revealed storyline, the characters, the animation. Oh my god. I don't like that movie at all. I don't like that movie whatsoever. It's bad. Shane. This is one of the greatest westerns of all time. This was, in part, a precursor to the Man with No Name trilogy. One of Alan Ladd's most well-known performances outside of his Gun for Hire. It's about a guy who drifts into town, he meets his family, and they welcome him into his home. You know, he wants to help people, but then there are these, I don't know what you call them, but they're like, cattlemen or something. Cattlemen and a hired gun, yeah, that's it. They're terrorizing the town, so he has to do what's right. And this is just a really, probably one of the most influential westerns of all time. Of course, you probably know the famous ending, which, if you don't, I'm not going to spoil it, but yeah. Another one of the most famous films ever made, The Shawshank Redemption. This is another one of my favorite films alongside Shane. This is a film that's a very inspirational and meaningful film. Someone who's thrown in prison for something he didn't do meets one of the prisoners, and it's a redemption arc. It's a very powerful film. It's something that you can't verbalize in a video like this, but there's so much to this movie that you can't really explain. It's just a brilliant deconstruction on trying to save a man's soul, and it's just brilliant. And people don't realize that it's a Stephen King adaptation, but it's one of the best you could watch. It's powerful, inspirational, well written, well acted. Sling Blade, I have never seen this before. Barry Bob Thornton, I've heard good things. Barry Bob Thornton won an Oscar for adapting the screenplay. I believe it was based on a novel, right? I don't know, but it was based on something. And he was nominated for Best Actor. I haven't seen that yet, but heard good things. But Sandlot, one of my favorite films. This is one of my favorite films. I've seen this movie many times. This is a film that really captures the spirit of youth, or at least one of them. All these all these younglings, they have their own little club, their own baseball club, and they're afraid of this dog who they call the Beast, and their imaginations run wild. They have their own. They're carefree, and oh, it's just so great. Such a really nice film. I actually need to get a new copy because my copy doesn't work. My friends and I we watched this one day, and my copy just doesn't work. My copy just doesn't work anymore. I don't know why. So, but Sandlot's one of my favorites. Shuri Temple, Little Darling Pact, excuse me. Now and Forever with Miss Marker and the Runt Page. A lot of people don't know this, but Shuri Temple was actually one of the biggest stars on the Fox lot during the 1930s, which would actually explain why 20th Century Fox did not want her to do Wizard of Oz. That would actually make sense. Skyfall, the Dan Craig era Bond. I've actually never seen this. This one, yeah, he goes to Italy. I think Italy. Showboat. Another one of the MGM musicals, and one I actually grew up on. This is a film that, okay, it's set on a showboat during the 1930s. I believe 30s? Or no, it's turn of the century, never mind, sorry. I think it's the turn of the century. Kathleen Grayson, Ava Gardner, and Howard Keel. Great love triangle between the three of them. And the thing is that I didn't really understand the ending. Like, for so many years, I did not understand the ending. And then somebody explained it to me. When I was doing a theater production, somebody explained it to me. And then I'm like, oh, now I get it. Oh, and we cannot forget William Warfield's performance of Old Man River, which is one of the most well-known songs. Short Circuit. You know, does anybody know where I can get a better copy of this movie? Because I've searched forever and I can't seem to find it. This Steve Guttenberg, R2D2 type movie, it's good for what it is. That's like if you gave R2D2 a vocal performance. That's basically what that movie is. Shadow of a Doubt. Oh yes, one of Alfred Hitchcock's best. This guy comes into a peaceful town, meets his relatives, but what none of them realize is that he's wanted for murder. At least that's what I remember about it. I don't necessarily remember the rest of it, but I do remember the film was said to be Alfred Hitchcock's favorite film. Shakespeare in Love, Best Picture winner in 1998. The sort of semi-fictional, semi-true-ish, I don't know, because it's been many years since I've seen this. The film about how William Shakespeare got the inspiration for Romeo and Juliet, with an Oscar-winning performance by Gwyneth Paltrow and Judi Dench. Yeah, of course, a lot of people know this film as like one of the best romance films, but I you know, as a fan of Shakespeare, I don't know. I need to rewatch that again sometime. The Shining. This is my favorite horror film of all time. And no, I'm not just saying that because it's Stanley Kubrick and he's my favorite director. I'm not just saying that. I actually legitimately mean that it is my favorite horror film of all time. This film has everything that a horror film should be. Suspense, tension, a creepy atmosphere, actual scares, a complex character at the center. Jack Nicholson, Shelley Duvall, Scatman Crothers. This is a brilliant film. I think we all know it by now, but if you haven't, if you don't know anything about this movie, then please, for the love of God, watch this movie knowing nothing. Because, I mean, the atmosphere, the creepiness, the tension, and just how everything, you know, may appear to be like, everything may appear what it seems, but it's actually not. There's so many complex mysteries and riddles with it that I've seen this movie probably 10 or 12 times, and even now I'm still trying to unravel its mysteries. Although a lot of people would love to spoil them for you, but I don't really think you need to. It's really excessive. You don't need to spoil it. You don't need to spoil everything for everybody. Speaking of spoiling something, Shutter Island. Now, I saw this a long time ago, and I know there's a twist in it, but I don't really remember what it was. Leonardo DiCaprio, Max von Sydow, who else is in here? Ben Kingsley, Michelle Williams, Mark Ruffalo. Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen this, but I remember Leonardo DiCaprio is investigating this island called Shutter Island, where only the most mentally ill, most notorious criminals reside. And there's like this whole thing about Leonardo DiCaprio's character, but I don't want to give it away right now because I don't remember it. But Sixth Sense. Oh, M. Night Shyamalan, you're a weird case. One minute you make great stuff like this, and then the next you make garbage like Last Airbender and The Visit. What is up with you? But this was his first film, and he nailed it the first time. Yeah, this was pretty special when it first came out in 1999. It was actually nominated for a few Oscars. But yeah, I haven't seen this in quite some time, but I do remember it. Shaft. Oh, yes. This movie is awesome. This was made at a time when the blaxploitation genre was just getting their start. But Shaft was one of only a handful of those films to be given widespread distribution. And in turn, it won an Oscar for Best Song, performed by Isaac Hayes. And this is just a great action film in general. It's a very inspirational film if you're trying to make an action film with a hard, tough character and everything. This is just a really great movie. Great movie all around. I did see the new one that came out in 2019. I did see that. And I will probably pick up a Criterion edition at some point. Shine. Jeffrey Rush won an Oscar for portraying Gregory Hescott, right? I'm trying to think of his name. Hang on a minute. I'm blanking on his name now, but he was a well-known pianist that suffered from schizophrenia. Hang on, I'm blanking on the dude's name. But anyway, that was David Heffcott. Yeah, David Heffcott. That was his name. David Heffcott. So, yes, he does a really great job in this. And it's a pretty decent film, although the only downside that I have is his dad was not as controlling as the movie makes it appear. Does not have a Blu-ray, but it's really good. Sister Act. Not a bad movie either. With Whoopi Goldberg, Mary Wilkes, and Maggie Smith. Not a bad movie at all. Basically, a woman who has to go into hiding, so she becomes a nun, while simultaneously helping their singing group. It's good, but what it is. It's not any more good than that, though, but it's fine. I did not see the second one, but I heard it was terrible. The Shootist. You know what's interesting about this? Movie? This was the first John Wayne movie I ever saw, which is actually ironic because this was his final film in 1976. Also with Warren Bacall, Ron Howard, and Scatman Crothers, and James Stewart. This was Baduk's swan song, and yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it. Sleepy Hollow. Okay, remember when I said that I wasn't really a Tim Burton fan? Well, this was one of his better movies. This is definitely one of his better movies, taking The Legend of Sleepy Hollow and doing something crazy with it. This is just a brilliant well done movie with Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci. It's got great atmosphere. It's got a gothic kind of mood. You have pretty good effects for the most part. But it's just that was good. I was kind of surprised by that one. Next, you cannot have a musical section without Singing in the Rain. Gene Kelly, Don O'Connor, and Debbie Reynolds. This is one of the greatest MGM musicals of all time. It's essentially a celebration of a transition from silent to sound. And it also shows kind of the difficulties that filmmakers had at the time converting their studio to sound. But this is sort of a lighthearted version of that. It's got one great sequence after another. Of course, you have Moses Opposes with Gene Kelly and Don O'Connor. You have Good Morning. Good morning, good morning. It's great to stay up late. Good morning to you. And of course, it's got the iconic Singing in the Rain, which a lot of people don't know this, but that's actually milk, because they could not photograph actual water, so they used milk instead. And it ended up being one of the greatest sequences in film history. I'm going to talk forever about that movie, but I grew up on that. That was actually one of the first MGM musicals I watched that was shown to me. I have connections with that movie. Signs. M. Night Shyamalan. Yeah, this movie has been widely criticized in recent years. I'm saving this one for a rainy day. I may have seen it once a long time ago, but after seeing so many people critique it for its obvious twist, for one of the dumbest twists that we fell for, Silent Hill. This is another video game adaptation, and one that I may talk about down the road. But if you want to know my take on it now, I think it was one of the better ones to come out around this time. This was the time when the UV Bowl video game adaptations were becoming popular, and then you have Resident Evil on top of that. So this stood out at the time, and for actually being decent. So, but I watched it one time, and having no knowledge of the games, I gotta say it was actually kind of good. It's got a creepy atmosphere, it's got some decent scares here and there, but the one thing that I think made it work was the idea of Silent Hill. Once you enter Silent Hill, you can never leave. Silver Linings Playbook. Jennifer Lawrence won an Oscar for portraying a woman who she becomes the love interest of Bradley Cooper, who suffers from bipolar. And I can tell you from personal experience, and I can tell you this, it is the most accurate depiction of bipolar that I know of. Ooh, one of my favorite films, Silence of the Lambs. Winner of Big 5 Oscars, including Best Picture, Best Actor, Best Actress, Director, and Adapted Screenplay. This is one of my favorite films of all time. This is such a very haunting film. There's a lot to say. Okay, so it mainly deals with Clarence Starring, played by Jodie Foster, who she's a Wookiee of the FBI, who she's trying to find out what happened to these murders at the hands of someone by the name of Buffalo Bill. And the only thing that they can do is figure out his location through the hands of his doctor, Hannibal Lecter, played by Anthony Hopkins. But he's known to be known as Hannibal the Cannibal. And they tell her, don't let him get to your head. There are these boundaries, you gotta follow all that. But through the two of them, I don't want to give it away, but once the two of them are on screen together, the movie becomes something else. The movie becomes a fantastic character study. Hannibal Lecter is one of the most haunting characters ever portrayed on film. It's not necessarily what he does, it's how he gets inside your head. and the cinematography, writing, and acting really make it known. And oh my god, just so incredible. Such an incredible movie. A lot of people will think, and one more thing, because I'm gonna go on and on about that movie. A lot of people think that Silence of the Lambs is a horror movie. It's not. It's actually a thriller. Silkwood, the film about Karen Silkwood, who worked for the McGee nuclear plant, but she was trying to expose him for radiation poisoning. Yeah, if you know the story, then this movie delivers. Meryl Streep, Cher, Kurt Russell, great film. Actually, they just announced recently that they are going to try and open up the investigation again as to what happened to her. So I think that's really great that they're doing that, because something happened to her that, we're still trying to figure it out. Sliver, a decent little horror film that was essentially a celebration of, the B films of the 50s and 60s with Nathan Fillion and Elizabeth Banks. Great effects on that one. Smart Money, the only film that Edward G. Robinson and James Cagney did together. At the time, they were known for James Cagney was become a household name in the gangster world with The Public Enemy, and Edward G. Robinson with Little Caesar. And you put the two of them together, and it clicked. Like, something clicked. This is the only film they did together, and I rewatched it recently, and it's great. Underrated. And lastly, Strange Days, which, if you ever seen Brainstorm, this movie is very similar to that, except it's all hyped up and everything. Like, it's like, amplified to about like 5. Yeah, I think I like Brainstorm a little better than this. This does not have a Blu-ray, but yeah. And again, another one of these blockbuster tags. It's not an action film at all. I don't know why it is. Alright, next section.